Hello friends, Adam here with FED. I recently made a video about forging and kind of like how it's kind of good and how you kind of want to do it in Fire Emblem Engage. Maybe it's just my opinion on that, but there were some people who posted and said, hey, why would you ever forge an iron weapon? Essentially saying that's not going to help you in the end game. It's a waste of money, things like that. And I don't know, man. I think I hardcore disagree with that, and I'm going to tell you why today. But before we do that, I did put up a poll that says, is forging worth it in Engage, or is the money better spent elsewhere? Because that was the main argument that I received. It was really just from one comment, but for some reason that one comment was enough for me to be like, wait, am I doing this all wrong? Because, you know, the game's still new. But no, the more I thought about that, comment's just dumb. So, is forging worth it? 70% of you said yes. 8% of you said it not worth, and 23% of you said only forge powerful weapons, so not steel or iron. I'm going to tell you why you are wrong on those last two, the 8% and the 23%. You guys are silly gooses, and I'm going to tell you why. But we're also going to look at some comments from you guys from that poll. So this is from Jude Illusion, who says, this was our top rated comment, who says, I'm used to money being a non-issue in Fire Emblem games, mainly Tellius since they're the ones I play most. So it was weird having it so limited, but at a good challenge. Forging isn't bad at all, but it's best done sparingly. I ran out of money fast. And yeah, it can be pretty expensive. Generally speaking, I wouldn't say forge like all your weapons or something, because you just don't have the resources to do that. But also you need money to buy a couple of other very important things. And my only experience with the game is on maddening. Maybe on hard it's more important to do donations, but every donation I've done so far on maddening has felt kind of pointless. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't really felt good about the money I've spent there, except for a couple like powerful items or something that I've gotten. But generally it hasn't felt very worth it to do the donating thing on maddening difficulty. So I understand that if you're playing on normal or hard, or maybe even on Madden, you want to do the donation stuff, that's probably where you spend most of your money, because that's like a lot. But other than that, you really only want to spend money on like staves, right, or staves, sorry. And like those are like the only things that really require you to spend money on, and maybe seals if you want to get some like second seals. But the game does hand you quite a few master seals for free, just for killing bosses and stuff. So second seals and staves are your two like money sinks, right? And then outside of that, it's forging. Now, it's not that much gold to forge things. You can take an iron dagger to an iron dagger plus 5 for only 3,000 gold, which isn't that much, especially when you consider that you're taking a weapon and giving it like plus 9 might or whatever ridiculous number it is. That is a huge difference, and it's going to make the game way easier for you. The other argument that I hear, though, around this kind of stuff is you should only be spending money on things that are going to help you in the end game or help you later. And that is like a logical fallacy that you hear a lot from newer players of the series, is that the entire game is about preparing for the final few chapters where it's hardest. When in all reality, you should be spending resources early that'll allow you to, that'll number one, make the game easier, but number two, since it makes the game easier, you're able to train your units more effectively and gather other resources that make the game easier later. So just because, you know, maybe you forge an iron sword +2 or something just for a couple extra points of might and hit, doesn't mean your, you know, the opportunity costs of spending it there instead of saving it later for like an iron, or I mean like a silver sword or something, or like a spear, doesn't mean that it's going to make the game harder for you in the long run. I'd argue it makes the game easier for you in the long run. And in fact, just an iron weapon that's forged just a couple times, even like to +2 or +3, is generally going to be good enough to carry you for a lot of the game. So an early forge can make the game so much easier. That's a big thing for me. Let's look at another comment who says, this is from Unhinged Manchild, who says, absolutely, refining an iron dagger to +2 or +3 early and Makaya engrave for Yunaka makes her darn near unkillable for the first 13 chapters so far in your experience. Forging hand axe and javelin to +1 is pretty cheap and gives them +1 might and +5 hit, completely worth. And then they talk about longbows. So they would bring up the engraving thing, and some people were like, well, just engrave. It's basically free because it costs, you know, bond fragments, whatever. And there's like 1 million of bond fragments to have. But they said, you know, just use engravings. And my answer to that is, why not both? Why not both? Because you do have things like the Micaiah engraving, which are like plus 40 avoid or something. Or it's either plus 30. I think it's actually plus 40. I think hers is 40. Plus 40 avoid, but like minus 2 or 3 might. So like forging it to work with the engrave can be really powerful. So instead of just having this like really dodgy character that deals, you know, 0 damage, you're going to have a really dodgy character that deals some damage. And I think forging should be used in tandem with the engraving system to make the game easier for you. Again, making the game easier for you in the short term is going to make the game easier for you in the long term as well. See, same thing goes with like stat boosters. You know, you ever see a player, or maybe you do this yourself, who hoards stat boosters until the end of the game, and then they like load up a unit, or like they save them because they're not sure if they're going to need them later or something. Just use them. Just try it. Do yourself a favor and just buff up a unit that you're using to make the game easier in the moment. For the same reason, I've seen a lot of people say that Vander is a horrible character to use. I think, oh, Vander's so bad. He's a terrible unit. Vander is the best early game unit, bar none. Vander is the best early game unit. If for nothing else, his bulk. He has 40 HP at base. So being able to, you know, not die is super nice. And again, I'm talking about maddening. Maybe on normal and hard, everyone's bulky enough not to die to things. But he just makes the game way easier if you're willing to use him. Before anyone says, oh, but Louis does that too. Well, you can have 2 guys that do that, and it's great. It's great. Yeah, Vander can kill things, and if you give him the right weapon, he can just like weaken things for you. Give him like a compact axe instead of giving him, you know, a steel axe or an iron axe or something. He'll weaken stuff for you and make it so your weaker units can get level ups. Just use Vander. Vander's good. Vander's good. Anyway, sorry, that's off topic. But ultimately, people say forging costs too much money and you should be spending your money elsewhere. But on maddening, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case. Even on normal and hard, I don't think that's the case. I will say I don't think it's worth it to forge a weapon into like the next tier of weapon unless you want to really get it early. For instance, I wouldn't say ever to forge like an iron sword into a steel sword. You know, that doesn't really feel worth it. I think one thing that I did do that I really appreciated though was forging a fire tome to an L fire tome early on. You don't get L-Fire for a while, and the might difference is pretty big, and it's generally cheaper to upgrade the weapon to the next tier of weapon than to forge or refine the weapon as it is. So it's cheaper to get an L-Fire than it is to get like a Fire +3 or something like that. Something to keep in mind. So yeah, those are my thoughts on forging and just like also just using resources to make the game easier for yourself. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think using the things the game gives you is a good idea? Do you think that the game being easier for you in the short term will also make it easier for you in the long term? I guess it depends on circumstances, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts, especially considering I've gotten some pushback on that. Does making the game easier in the short term make it easier in the long term? Yeah, I just want to hear you guys' experience on that. And is donating worth it? That's another thing. Is donating to the different countries worth it? I don't think it is. On maddening, at least. The more that I've done it, the more I'm like, well, why did I do that? But on normal and hard, my understanding is it is worth it for the skirmishes. But regardless, let me know in the comments what you think. Anyways, subscribe to the channel for more engaged discussions. We're going to be just like, we'll do some guide videos here and there, but this is the kind of stuff I'm more interested in personally. Is like the more discussion heavy things about like what's viable or what should be done, or the idea of like, is the game actually good, or does certain mechanics work well? Those are the kind of discussions I want to have for this, I think. So yeah, make sure to subscribe if you're into Fire Emblem Engage and want more content surrounding that. And make sure to like the video so other people can find it. That'd be awesome. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.